focus on hitting your goals in every area of your business. Remember, the universe rewards the bold. A leader has to take the risks.
What's going on, Mr. Painter? How are you, sir?
I'm very good. It looks like you're somewhere tropical.
No, it's just my front yard. So I'm actually in Rancho Cucamonga, California.
Okay, that's a mouthful.
So, yes.
All right.
Where are you right now?
I'm actually I'm in my floating home on the Columbia River in Portland, Oregon.
Wow, nice.
Yeah.
So is that kind of where you spend most of your time? I mean, floating in the water?
My wife and I have kind of spoiled ourselves. We live in 2 vacation homes. This one where we could bring our boat right to our outdoor dock. And then during the winter, because the Portland winters really suck, we live in the Dominican Republic. We have a home there.
Oh, okay.
So, yeah.
Yeah, I actually have a very good friend that owns a home in the Dominican Republic, and I was even considering going to the Dominican Republic this month. So,
oh my gosh,
that's interesting. What airport do you fly?
Okay, we're actually pretty close to Puerto Plata, which there's 2 main airports. Where does your friend live? Do you know?
Gosh, I was trying to think right now when it was I think it said pop something.
Okay, well, the abbreviation for Puerto Plata is POP.
Okay, maybe it was the same. Maybe it was.
Yeah, we live further north and just in a small village, but it's about 7 or 8 minutes from the beach, and it's very it's great.
Nice. Well, that's nice because you're on Wealth on the Beach podcast. So
yes,
that's wonderful. That's a perfect little segue.
Yeah, been very fortunate, but exactly. I'm Wealth on the Beach. I thought, yeah, that's me.
Yeah, exactly. You are Wealth on the Beach, and you also wrote the encyclopedia. We're here with Terry Painter, and he wrote the encyclopedia of commercial real estate advice, and also a contributing writer for Forbes. That's pretty awesome. Founder of the apartment loan store and business loan store, mortgage banking, $4 billion in commercial loans since '97. So pretty good stuff, Terry. So welcome, man. What's the world has changed. What's the future of commercial real estate, man? I want to know because I own a commercial property.
Yeah. Well, let's just say right around the year 2000, late 90s, anybody buying commercial real estate, or let's just say even a small apartment complex, was really insulted if they didn't get at least a 10 cap. Can you believe that? And so, times have changed, and coming out of the coronavirus recession as we are today, with a scarcity of properties, both residential and commercial, on the market, prices are just unrealistically high. I kind of addressed this in my book quite thoroughly about how to evaluate a property to get the return that you want on your investment, which is why you're investing in the first place. But having been through many economic cycles, almost all of them, I would say all of them over the last 24 years, usually coming out of a recession, properties, this would be about the time where the foreclosures would, pretty much would have happened, and property values would be, really, really, really good for investors. But that did not happen this time. This recession was an anomaly caused by a pandemic. So just because of it's because of the scarcity of properties, the inventory being so low, that's why prices are so high. So I've never really seen anything like this. Yeah, go ahead.
And so the thought is, like, because of COVID and because people are all working at home now, or at least there's a big chunk of people working at home.
Right.
Or do you kind of feel like it'll, as things settle down over the next few years or whatever, people are going to start like merging back into their commercial properties? I'm talking like buildings and office space and things like that. What's your thoughts on that?
Well, without question, there have been some lifestyle changes that are just not going to go away. If anybody who reads the news knows that Goldman Sachs and a lot of really large banking firms have told their employees several months ago that they've got to go back to the office because they're renting this office space. They're not going to default on their office space. And so from that standpoint, there are going to be people who have to go back to work and work in an office. But if we're talking about office space, what's happened also is that it's just that there's so many people who are working at home that really love it. I mean, after the Great Recession, we had 14 employees. We had to scale down to about 5 of us after that, but we all went to home offices. And that's why, Wealth on the Beach makes sense to me because, I didn't like it at first, but I'll tell you, the lifestyle cannot be beat when you just have to commute from, the coffee pot to your desk down, from your kitchen, but there's a time where I think we're going to see some lifestyle changes. And just as far as the retail side goes, retail was already getting hurt prior to coronavirus, hitting the planet, and more people were buying online. Well, now it's an epidemic event where more people are buying online than they are actually. They've gotten used to it than actually going to, Macy's has closed several hundred stores. The month that my book came out, not too long after that, Barnes & Noble's closed 400 stores. They rent all their properties. They don't own any of them. So, so there is a lot of retail space available on the market today. There's quite a bit of office space also.
Would you say that those would be good investments? I mean, obviously Barnes & Noble leaves, right? The commercial place, right. Let's just say the place forecloses for whatever reason. And I mean, would that be something that you would take a look at? I mean,
well, it's just that their average store is probably close to 8,000 square feet. And that's really, their stores are large. And so they would have to be repurposed. If they were going to be kept as retail, they would have to be divided up into smaller spaces. But whenever you see an economic event, or if you even want to call this a catastrophe, there's opportunity for somebody who has foresight. And the basic tenet in a situation like this, because I have clients that just wait around that have money put aside for opportunities, and they're really creative people who actually repurpose real estate. And so, we also have a lot of hospitality properties that are coming back, but then now the coronavirus is, spiking again with the Delta variant. We're seeing, the travel industry slow down a bit again. So anyway, during the Great Recession, what happened is that, some of my clients actually bought hotels that were not doing very well for perhaps 70 cents on the dollar, and then they repurposed them because they got them for a good price as student housing or as multifamily real estate, and they did rather well. So
well, maybe just that kind of looking at the opportunities, but then maybe repurposing certain situations that might be more fruitful.
Yes.
So Terry, tell us a little bit about where are you from? I mean, where were you born, and what kind of kid were you?
Oh, well, that's okay. Well, actually, thanks for asking that. It's I was born in Chicago. Then I was raised in Champaign-Urbana, Illinois, when I was 8 years old, and where the University of Illinois is. And I've always loved business. When my father long ago had a jewelry store, and I asked him one day how he made money. He told me that he just buys the rings and so on for, let's say, 25 cents, and he charged $1 for it. So I thought that's really great. So I went to the gumball machine, bought a bunch of rings, and I was about probably 6 years old, and then sold them. I put them in my father's fancy ring boxes, and I sold them to the girls in the neighborhood for $1, and also on time payments, because he told me about that. Well, then several girls their mothers complained, and my mother made me give all the money back. And so I kind of got discouraged. I thought, well, gosh, I don't really get this business thing. If you have to give the money back, what's the purpose? But after a while, I just have that entrepreneurial blood in me. And yeah, so.
Just watching your parents now, were your parents rich or poor or medium, or where were you guys?
Well, actually, they were actually, the father that I spoke of that had the jewelry store, he was my biological father. My mother remarried into a much, kind of moved up a bit, and we were kind of middle class, I would say, but not rich. So, Yeah.
Well, that's fantastic. And you were a good kid, bad kid? What kind of kid were you?
Oh, actually, okay. I was actually a perfect kid, I would say, until I turned about 15, and then I could not figure out why my parents were trying to tell me what to do all the time. I thought I was a grown up already. So until I became a older teenager, I would say, yeah, I was a good kid, and then I mellowed out after that.
And so when was it, when was that like moment for you, Terry, that you said, you know what, man, I'm going into business? What was your first kind of
Well,
moment where you made that investment or,
yeah, actually, for me, I really went into, I have a degree in education from the University of Oregon, and I taught my first year. But the problem was that I'm an older guy, and in 1973, I was getting paid $9,000 a year, and I thought, this is not the lifestyle I really want. And so I decided to, after 1 year, I left teaching, and I decided to, I went into the food business. And I had a food career for many years. I had I had like a chain of French bakeries and restaurants and shopping malls. That was my last venture, which I had done for many years. But what I really loved was actually building and designing the restaurants. And then after maybe they were successful after 5 or 6 months, I had no interest in working there anymore. I wanted to do the restaurants. So that's why the business I do today, doing commercial lending, is perfect for me, because I get to work on a new deal, every day, every week, whatever. It's fun. Yeah.
And so when was it, or why did you end up in the lending business?
Okay.
How did that happen?
Well, what happened is that in 1996, as I mentioned, I had actually 5 restaurants. They were all in shopping malls. And what was happening is that I had like French bakery and restaurant. We used olive oil and butter and all these expensive ingredients. And the owners of the malls were putting in Wendy's and Subways and these chain restaurants so I realized that it was a very labor intensive business that I really needed to get into something else. And also my wife and my banker told me I could not open up any more restaurants because it was just too expensive and too risky. So I actually, my banker became one of my best buddies. And I just said to him, I said, I'd really like to do what you do, because you love what you do. You're just putting deals together with people and businesses and commercial real estate. And I said, well, how can I do it? And he said, really, Terry, he said, you just can't just step into a job like this. It takes several years of training. I said, I just don't really see how you can do it. But when somebody tells me I can't really do something, it really fires me up. And a couple of months later, I was reading Entrepreneurial Magazine, and it said, I came across an article that said, own your own mortgage company doing business and commercial real estate loans. We'll train you how to do it. And I thought, that's what I want to do. So for $10,000, I paid this company, they're still around today, called the Loan Consultants, to train me. And everybody except for my mother, who has always believed in me, told me I was going to fail. Like, how, you don't know what you're doing. How can you do this? Well, what made it work was basically that the loan consultants trained me on every deal that I did. And that's still how I train my loan officers today. It's a type of job, just like investing in real estate. You certainly could read books on it, but it's not until you really start working on your first deals, as you would know, Daniel, that you actually start learning this game. It's really technical. I cannot emphasize that enough. It's not an easy way to make money. You've got to have a love for it.
Well, it's a lot of work. I mean, it's a lot of processing. It's a lot of follow up. It's a lot of making sure, there's a lot of moving parts when it comes. Right. Now, I don't know. I mean, how would commercial lending be different than, say, lending, residential lending? Like, how is that a different animal?
It's a completely different animal. Okay, so residential lending, so the loan is made to the borrower and the property. And so there's 2 pre-approvals there. For commercial lending, actually there's 7 pre-approvals, and any one of those can kill your deal. The first one is the cash flow of the property. And for residential, it's basically the quality of the borrower, what's your credit score, what's your income, and so on. And then the quality of the property, of course, what condition is the property in, what's the value of that property. So those are 2 pre-approvals. So with commercial, we have the income of the property. That's the most important. But after the Great Recession happened, then because so many loans were made to people who were not strong borrowers, then on the commercial side as well, the quality of the borrower, or what we call the sponsor in commercial real estate, became the most important. So having a net worth that's equal to pretty close to the size of the loan is very important today. For banks, having other sources of income and also having experience. So that's all about the borrower. And then of course, location. The location, that's really important. Banks prefer that you're going to buy a commercial property closer to where they have a branch. And then there's national lenders, that money that we represent, and they prefer that you find a property in your own backyard too, unless you have experience owning a property out of state and excellent management. And so you also have the condition of the property, and you have the quality of the tenants and the quality of the leases. So there's a lot more buttons you have to hit with a yes, that this is going to be a fit with commercial real estate.
And so do you have like a selection process? Now, I know you deal with lending, but I'm sure you own commercial property.
Yes.
You have properties of your own. So do you have a process that you go through when selecting a commercial property? I mean, would you say that one type is more valuable than another?
Well, for sure. There's two types of commercial properties are the easiest to get into. In my book, The Encyclopedia of Commercial Real Estate Advice, actually really goes into all the different commercial real estate types, and it really points a finger at the ones that are easier for those of you who are getting started. Okay, I would say one of my favorite property types, which I have not invested in, but I would love to, is self-storage. It does great during good economic times and bad economic times. And all you have to do to make a unit ready is sweep it out. And how good is that? And now the downside with self-storage is that if you find one, that's just recently been built and is not established yet, they do take a while to lease up. So, but they do have a tendency to cash flow and make your loan payments plus a good profit at like 85% occupancy. So that's, apartments or any other type of commercial real estate really can't hit numbers like that. The second one, of course, is multifamily. But the thing about multifamily, which is apartments, is that they could really be a bear to manage. And even when you have professional management, it's so intensive that you've got to really manage. In my book, I really talk about managing your property manager, because if you don't, you're the squeaky wheel. The units are going to take longer to actually turn over. The problem tenants that might have junk on their patios and just be taking up more of their parking spaces with junky cars or who knows what. You have to evict those people, or at least manage them as a mother would manage a teenager. So anyway, but multifamily is easy to learn. It's just really tough to manage.
And what are some of the other commercial properties that, or tell me a little bit about maybe something that you invested in, like that ended up becoming successful?
Well, actually, I was a partner with my mother in a 48-unit apartment complex in Eugene, and we learned about it. This was my first property, and we really learned about that in Eugene, Oregon. What we really learned about that property is because it was older, it was a C- property, I would say, in an okay neighborhood, that it really took like maybe, based upon what the owner gave us as far as financials, it's like we spent 3 or 4 times more on repairs and maintenance than he did. So eventually we had to sell the property. And so, so as far as, my advice from my own experience, but primarily from doing so many loans, hundreds of loans on commercial properties, is that, so you start with either self-storage or an apartment complex, but find one that's, especially on the apartment side, find one that's in a good neighborhood. You really don't want to start out by what happens, even during this last recession we had, the coronavirus recession, is that the properties that were in good neighborhoods with more middle-class people pay the rent all the time. because they have savings and they have, they can work at home. Working class people in or blue collar neighborhoods that were a bit rougher, up to 20% or even more at times were either late or not paying the rent. Or so.
Yeah, what a weird world we're living in right now. I mean, I guess the eviction is going away. Like the evictions for tenants now is
Right.
kind of the government stopping that now. And so, what's your thoughts on that? I mean, is it a good thing that we're allowing all these people to just pay? I mean,
Yeah.
is that fair? Really?
It's like we live in a society that fortunately cares about other people who might be down and out. Okay, it's kind of like one of the basic tenets of the United States government. They help other countries. Sometimes I'm not going to get into politics on this show, but anyway, everybody has their own opinion on that, on where that's gone. But the problem is that you also have, the problem is because my wife and I do have some rental properties as well. And my wife had, we have like some rental homes in Kissimmee, Florida. And it's like we really worked with some of the tenants that were having difficulty paying the rent. And ultimately, one of them has pulled through that and has now gotten caught up, but also what happened, but you have to think, we have other means. We don't have a mortgage on the home, fortunately, this particular one. But she went through about 9 months where she either did not pay the rent or at all, or just a small portion. So, just being, I know other landlords that have, where they've actually applied, we've helped them apply for a forbearance, forgive, where you could, stop your loan payments, but it's only for about 3 months if you're a landlord. But unfortunately, the eviction forgiveness actually was going way longer than that. So, what's happening is you're taking a problem from people who are really on the threat of being put out in the street, and now what you're doing is you're passing that up the economic scale to people who can probably afford it more than that person who's going to be put out on the street. So it's just really, everybody's got to make their own value judgment there. But ultimately, I feel that they have not really protected landlords enough. There's tenants that have slipped through the cracks. There's landlords that have slipped through the cracks as well, and now they have credit problems. In some cases, it might be a couple of single-family rentals that are supporting their family, and now they're not getting rent. So you got to look at both sides, of that question.
I mean, it really is both sides, because I mean, they're at the same token, there's a lot of people that just stopped working too. So I mean, there are. I mean, think about it. Even right now, I mean, there's the last year really. I mean, I live in California, but I mean, a lot of these restaurants, they can't find people to work.
No,
restaurants. I mean,
right. Yes, and also retail stores.
Retail stores.
Jobs that are for certain, I would say under $15, $18 an hour. That has impacted a lot of businesses. And so what happens then, and then once again, if those businesses don't make it, like most restaurant owners rent their property, they don't own it. So that's going to, we've done a lot of loans on strip malls that, we're kind of worried about, because really smaller strip malls, usually the tenants are the anchor, the restaurants are the anchor tenants. And you really, was bad enough with just not being able to, seat indoors because of the coronavirus. But now that they can't get enough help, a lot of the restaurants are just going to 7 days, from 7 days a week to 6 to 5 days a week. So
yeah, it's really unfortunate, because I think a lot of people kind of schooled the system too, where they said, hey, we're just going to take what the government's given us and not work. I mean, it's wild, because even
it doesn't,
trying to find an Uber has been hard, trying to find an Uber, because people are like, I'm making more money sitting on my couch than actually.
Well, Daniel, what's happened is that it's a double whammy, because we have an aging population with so many people retiring, and retiring rather well because of the stock market booming. And then their jobs, if their jobs were once again, working class jobs, they're not being replaced. So it's a problem.
Yeah, so it's a big deal. I mean, so what are your thoughts? I mean, obviously, Rona hit. The future's a little bit uncertain.
Yeah.
But I mean, what would be your take on like interest rates and the economy in the future? I mean, what's your feelings about things? Because again, you've been through so many different cycles and things happen, but where do you see the next 5 years or even 2 years?
If I had a crystal ball,
yeah,
I would be planning my next launch to space like Jeff Bezos.
Yeah.
If I could actually pinpoint, if I could actually call the shots on that one.
Of course.
But one thing I will say is that so we just went through we're still in the tail ends of the coronavirus recession, and what happened is that the government this time, they actually immediately invested in mortgage-backed security bonds, which created liquidity. The Feds kept interest rates low. And also they even propped up the stock market. So the economy has been sort of artificially kept up there. And the problem with that is that now that we're having inflation, whenever we have inflation, and don't ever, anybody who goes shopping for anything, whether it's gasoline or just toilet paper or groceries, it's inflation's in their face. So then the main way to lower inflation is to raise interest rates, because it just slows down the economy with businesses borrowing less and so on, stocking less inventory, everything gets slowed down a bit. So it does appear that that is in our future, but because one of the reasons why there's so, money is so available is that the government is still buying mortgage-backed security loans, which is Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac, and FHA. So, which is probably, is about 80% of the mortgage market, of the residential mortgage market, and it's a good chunk actually of the commercial mortgage market as well. So, but also after the Great Recession, it took them a while to actually start buying mortgage-backed security bonds, but eventually the government did, and so anyway, my thought is that interest rates, will go up because of inflation, if nothing else, because I remember when, I'm an older enough dude that I remember in 1982, when I sold one home and was looking to buy another, that, interest rates were, at about 14%, 12 to 14%. So it's like, I don't think we're not going to get there, of course.
Right. But it still is one of those things where, the future is, at least the economy, it's going to be heavily based on those interest rates. When those interest rates go up, we're probably going to have some sort of.
I think what will happen, what will help lower the price of real estate. One of the things that does help it is when interest rates do go up, because you just can't qualify for as large of a loan. I hate to use that as a factor for the future, but that's one thing. But one of the greatest problems we have today, and I'm looking for an apartment building myself in the, let's say the $1.5 to $3 million range right now, and actually I've also invested in a lot of other people's syndications because that's easier for me to do. But actually because I'm in the buying market right now, and it's such a seller's market. One of the things, we're seeing property, it's really difficult to buy investment real estate. If we just take a look at single family homes that in some inexpensive areas that we lend in, like Greenville, North Carolina or South Carolina, Kissimmee, Florida at one time, what we're seeing is that home property values have gone up way beyond what these homes will never be rentals again, because they don't pencil. Now that happened a long time ago in California. Like there's always been, for years, there's been a lack of single family rental homes available. But but for sure, throughout the entire country now, that phenomenon is happening. As home prices have gone up, it just doesn't pencil to rent them out for what people who rent homes for can afford. Now, if we take a look at multifamily, which are commercial properties of 5 units or more, then what's happening there is just the value of the properties are going so low that what's happening, and I wrote one of my most recent Forbes article on what ROI, what return on investment should you expect when you buy investment property today. And what you could expect is about maybe 2% during your first year, which cash on cash return. Nobody wants to invest at that. Maybe 3 or 4% your second year from raising rents. So what's happening is that all the equity, all the income from operations that should be going to the buyer, most of it's going to the seller because of the inflated prices on multifamily properties. And so, but it's not to say that if you could buy wisely, I have clients that are syndicators that just know how to pick out the right property in the right, good neighborhood that has potential. Then they could ride out that first 2 years. And just keep in mind that as long as you can raise rents, your property value will go up.
Good stuff. Good stuff.
Yeah.
Well, very, very, very intelligent conversation, Terry. I really appreciate you coming on and hanging out with us for a couple of minutes. And this has been really, really fun. I wish we could continue on. We probably talk for hours.
Yeah.
But look, I'd like you, if you could, just kind of tell us a little bit about how we get a hold of you and what kind of value you bring to the table. And obviously everybody knows about your encyclopedia of commercial real estate advice. We love that, and we're going to check you out on Forbes.com. Any other ways for us to get a hold of you?
Actually, if you're interested in financing a multifamily property, apartmentloanstore.com is where you want to go. And otherwise, I have a YouTube channel, which is rather new, but it's been fun. It's named after my book, The Encyclopedia of Commercial Real Estate Advice, where we go over, I'm planning to go over all, there's actually over 500 entries in the Encyclopedia of Commercial Real Estate Advice. Even though it sounds boring, it's actually half book, half how-to book, and half encyclopedia. It's got a lot of stories for my clients. And so anyway, my YouTube channel, I actually am going through, eventually going to hit all those real estate terms. So that's it.
I love it. I love it. Thank you so much, Terry, for being with us today. If you're listening, if you're watching, please go out and follow Terry. Say hello. Tell him you heard about him and you met him through Wealth on the Beach podcast. And as always, continue to dream bigger, get after it, but most importantly, do it now. God bless you. We will see you at the